Okay, Reid,
I think.
I think we are on the Jere Metcalf podcast where top real estate agents tell how they do it. And we've got you back.
Woohoo!
Yes, bring it on. So we've got you back on the show because we
Hmm.
had you and Marko on, but we were like, wait a minute, you two are so different. There's so much to talk about. We want to learn about each of you. So thanks for coming back on. You were an agent for 15
Thanks
years.
for having me.
You guys are killing it, but give us more.
Yeah, I mean, 15 years in the game. I've seen a lot of things change over the years. So
So we've got
Miami, Miami was a much sleepier town back in the day, back in 2006. We
it
didn't
was
have all these cool neighborhoods like Wynwood and the Design District and Edgewater. It was like South Beach and Coral Gables, Coconut Grove. Our downtown was whatever. So it's nice. It's like I feel like a proud parent too, watching my city evolve and grow and mature and get a little bit more respect.
that it. You became the parent to your city.
Yeah, anywhere you live, you feel a certain amount of like pride and ownership with it, and especially when you ambassador it for so long.
Yeah.
I've always been in love with Miami. I tell everyone I'm the biggest fan of Miami you'll ever meet. So, and it's genuine. So, to really believe it and live here, invest in it, and then, watch it kind of reach its potential and, continue to grow. It's a very satisfying, kind of proud feeling.
So you've been in doing this for a long time. As you look back on your career, so everybody, you did what? How many? A couple hundred million, 300 million last year in 2022.
Last year we did 220, but there's a lot of pre-construction projects that don't get counted because they haven't officially closed. But yeah, officially 220.
So a few hundred million, and you built that up over 15 years. Of course, you partnered with Marko, um,
Mhm.
and that's also enhanced your brand, enhanced what you can do. But neither one of you could have done this alone. Looking at your story, and everybody, if you want to hear that full story, listen to the episode that we have together. I think it's episode 279. But when we look at your story, why did you get into real estate in the first place?
So it's funny. I went to University of Miami. I'm from St. Louis, so I moved down to Florida. I got a letter in the mail. Everyone gets these college letters, and so I lived in St. Louis. It's freezing, and the University of Miami sent me one, and they had this beautiful campus with like palm trees, and it was sunny. And I was like, if I could live 4 years anywhere for college, why would I not want to live in Miami? It just seemed like a no-brainer for me. So I went to University of Miami, loved it, never wanted to leave. And then I had no idea. I was one of those, what's your major? Business management. I did track and field. I was just trying to enjoy college and have the best college experience. And then when I graduated, I had a business degree, which is fine, but nothing specific at all. I thought, maybe I'll be a sports agent, like, because 21, that sounds cool. So I worked for the Dolphins. I was like an intern in the 2005 season when Nick Saban was the coach. So I'd be on the sidelines following him around, because they wouldn't have wireless headsets, they'd have cords. So I'd follow Nick Saban around to make sure like no one tripped over his cords.
That sounds
I
like
would
fun.
work, yeah, and I would work training camp. I worked the summer before in New York. I had an internship at some like finance company that I hated because I was stuck in an office. It was 9 to 5, take the train, eat your salad on the stairs for like an hour, go back. Like I hated it. So I knew I wanted to do something a little more like interesting, fun, have a little more freedom with my time. And one of my friends, she worked at Elite Models. Her name was Hania. And so 2 years before in the summer, I did an internship in Brazil. Sorry, I did a course in Brazil, a study abroad for like 5 weeks. So I was in Ipanema for 3 weeks in Rio, and then Bahia and Salvador for 3 weeks. And there was 12 of us, she was one of them. And she was like, oh, I work at this modeling agency. It's really cool. You know, it's very relaxed atmosphere. Everyone's really fun. It's on South Beach. And she was like, this other agency is hiring. You should speak with them. So I wanted to be a sports agent, I guess. And I was working for the Dolphins as, you know, in sports. And I was like, let me work for an agency, sports agency. So I interviewed with this guy, Ron Gerard, who's still the director of Next. He hired me and I was his assistant. So I was his assistant. I was the assistant to the director of the agency of Next Models on South Beach, which for me was nice because I wasn't stuck in, like, I wasn't wearing a suit every day. I wasn't in some cubicle. I wasn't in New York. So I was in Miami, in South Beach. And, you know, I quickly realized I couldn't work somewhere from 9 to 6 every day. I hated it. I hated just that I had to be there at 9 and I had to leave at 5, or I couldn't leave until 5, even though everyone else was very cool and it was a relaxed environment. It was way better than the New York experience, but I still wanted that freedom of schedule. I hated that I knew exactly how much I was going to make. I wanted something that there was no ceiling. You know, I like the roller coaster. And in real estate, that's a big factor. Like, you have to be okay with having a couple months where you lose money or you don't make any money. And then, you know, another month you have a big hit and you have that kind of like you get, you know, it's emotional because you're up and you're down. It's a roller coaster. So after working there for about 6 months, downstairs was a real estate company called SBI Realty. And I didn't know anything about being a broker, a real estate agent. I just knew all of the people in the office, they made their own schedule. And, you know, they all had like nice cars, nice watches. So it was like, they definitely make cash. And working at the agency, I realized one of the biggest problems that the agents had was they'd always have these girls and these guys coming in town, but finding them places was very difficult. You know, they have to book them, they have to get their visas, they have to manage their schedules, their castings, but finding them apartments and places to live was just an extra burden. So I was like, okay, I'll get my license, I'll become a real estate agent, and I can help all my college friends, and I can help the models, photographers, and then like the bookers and people in that industry. So after, you know, working at Next Models, it was a really good experience. But after about, I think 9 months, I gave them my notice after I got my real estate license. And then I started as a real estate agent right downstairs. And they would send me all the models, whoever needed an apartment. All my college friends would kind of send me people because, you know, I just graduated from so I had a lot of friends still in college. And that's what I did for the first couple of years. I mean, I had I had a Dodge Dakota pickup truck. I lived with 3 of my college friends. I think my rent was like $600, and like skateboarding around to showings because like gas was expensive. So I mean,
had a pickup truck in Miami.
yeah, I mean, in college I couldn't afford a nice car, so I got like a pickup truck and I painted it. I got like big rims.
Oh, how
It was
fun.
cool for college. I quickly realized when you're helping a lot of your friends get rentals, having a pickup truck is the worst thing ever, because you get them a place and then they're like, hey, can I borrow your car? I need to move. Or will you help me? And helping people move is terrible. So I come from very humble beginnings in the real estate world, skateboarding around to showings, getting my friends rentals, and then helping them move in my pickup truck. But yeah, that was basically my feeder market was all my University of Miami friends, everyone in that kind of modeling world, because no one did that and no one wants to do that. These are month-to-month rentals, 6-month rentals, you know, very difficult stuff. But what I did is I would just create model apartments. So I would rent a place for 2 or 3 months, pack them with beds, and then I would just fill them up.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, I was doing whatever I could to just kind of pay rent at first, but you know, that kind of led to my first sale ever was one of the top male models back in the day, Trevon Hill, and he bought it was a studio at the Mirador right down the street for 214,000, and I was so happy because it was my first sale. And my commission was like $5,000. I could pay rent for 4 months. So, I started out like that, and then pretty soon I became like the rental guy. So every model, it turned to photographer, to promoter, bottle girl, bartender, college student. I was, for if you were like under 30 and living on South Beach and needed a place, I was kind of like the guy. But, obviously that doesn't pay that well. It's enough to pay your bills, which at 21, 22, 23, I just wanted to have freedom of schedule, and I wanted to, be able to, pay my rent, pay my bills. So it kind of started that way. Over the years, I would buy these condos. So now I have 6 condos that I rent to the agencies still. And then, I still take care of a lot of the top people in that industry for sales, rentals. Yeah, but that's how I started.
When you did the models, you were like renting and using them as models to show them, and then you would rent what you rented, or what did you mean by models? Just to make sure we're.
No. So the models at the agency, so like Next Models, for example, the one that I worked at, they would have, let's say, 3 girls come in town from Brazil, and the girls were coming for 4 months. And getting a 4-month rental is very difficult because there's a lot of restrictions with the different buildings. So, like most buildings are 6-month minimum. They have to screen every single person. These girls have no credit. They have no.
You rented.
Yeah. So what I would do is I would rent them and then kind of upcharge them slightly to make it worth it. But the headaches involved in that were a nightmare because neighbors want to know who's coming and going. And I said 4 months. These girls would come for a month sometimes, 3 weeks sometimes. So, but there was enough of a little bit of a margin there where I could, make a couple $100, make $1,000, and I would just, facilitate a way to house them. And then over the years, I kind of learned what buildings were cool with it, what buildings weren't. And then, I started buying in specific buildings. I got on the board. So now they don't have any issues. And I think there's probably, right now, probably 26 girls with agencies that live in properties that I own on South Beach.
Well, you have a pattern. You find a need or a problem, and you leverage it for an opportunity for everybody.
Yeah, that's yeah, it's one of the easiest ways to look at businesses. You see where's the issue and how can I fix it? And if you can fix it or help, then you have immediately created value for yourself and for other people.
When you did this, not many people were doing it. And I say this because this is going to transition into the mindset that created your success today. Not many
Yeah.
people were doing it. And there was some risk associated. And in your early 20s, clearly you like adrenaline and roller coasters, but nonetheless, a lot of people, you also like to pay your bills. A lot of people wouldn't have taken that risk or even thought of that. They would just said, not an option, and done something traditional, gotten frustrated, and perhaps quit. What kept you from going down the path most people do?
Well,
Opportunities.
it was one of those things that no one wants to do that. The idea of doing that now, finding people rentals for 1, 2, 3, 4 months is like, it gives me a headache just thinking about it. But I mean, it was kind of like survivor instinct, but it was also like Marko, for example. I know Marko because I got him his apartment when he was a promoter. And when he started he was a model and a promoter. So, I just had that mindset of I'm going to get every single person I can in an apartment, and everyone knows someone. So everyone's going to refer, and then just keep going down that of do a great job for one person. The next person will recommend you every the 1st and the 15th of every month. I remember I would go to the liquor store and I would buy everyone like a bottle of vodka, a bottle of tequila, a bottle of something. I was like Santa Claus driving around. Where are you at? Here's your move-in present. Here's your move-in present. The volume that I did was crazy because you had to do so many. I mean, the rents were a lot less than too. So you make $700 here, you make $500 on this one, so it was really like a survival thing. You just kind of, if I wanted to do that, I had to do it. But that being said, I mean, I had massive amounts of credit card debt.
That's what, of course you did. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at one point I was like, I needed a secondary thing. I had never worked in like a restaurant or like been a bartender. I had done some like promotion stuff at nightclubs, but I didn't want to go down that path because the hours are too tricky. You got to be out to like 3 or 4 in the morning. So at one point I was thinking about being a golf caddy at Fisher Island. I had like $65,000 of credit card debt. I was mid-20s. And I remember I sold 2 houses, one for 1.55. It was my first waterfront sale, 3166 North Bay. That was July 2010. And then I sold another house on South Beach for like 700 grand, like a dry lot house. And those 2 sales wiped out all my credit card debt. I remember it was the best feeling ever. But, you know, I paid all my minimums. My credit to this day is like 820 because, you know, you got to pay that. You owe them 10 grand. The minimum payment's like $400. You just do what you can to make the minimum payments. You know, I had roommates.
You'll kill it.
If people know Miami, I was living at the Flamingo for 3 years with roommates, not the most glamorous building, but you know, I was having fun too. You know, the cool thing about that is I'm from St. Louis. I moved here not knowing one person in the state of Florida. I had a friend from high school that ended up going to University of Miami as well. So I had one person I knew. And then after college, you know, my family lives in New York, St. Louis, Philly, Chicago. So no one lived in Florida. So building my network was a real challenge. You know, I had my University of Miami friends to kind of rely on, but a lot of them, you know, they leave after college. They don't really move to Miami Beach. We had a few that had some crossover, but you know, building up that network with the rentals, it helped me because when I started, the market was terrible. No one was buying anything. And
Yeah.
so rentals was kind of the only way I could do it. And then
2008, 2007, 2008. What year was it?
yeah, so I graduated in 2006. I traveled for the summer. I worked at Next 2006 and 7. And then I started really in like 2008. But by the time I started, I remember one of the first days at the office, the broker of SBI Realty, Diane Lieberman, we had these office meetings every Tuesday, and she held up, I think, the New York Times, and it was basically saying the financial world is collapsing. There were so many foreclosures and short sales. Foreclosures were good. Short sales were terrible because you'd put an offer in and you'd have to wait maybe 6 months for the bank to even look at it. So it was an environment that was terrible for real estate agents. And as a result, a lot of people got out of the business. But people always need places to live. So, you know, I tell people on my team if they're struggling or a couple sales fall through for them, you know, don't be too prideful to do some rentals or some smaller sales. You know, $1,000 is $1,000. You know, $500 is $500.
You built an influence, you built a network. I mean, you had at 21, you were moving gifts and
well, if you make $700, you can buy them a $25 bottle of, I think it was Patron in the days or whatever it was, and you know, it means something because, you know, I would always ask people, "Oh, what did your realtor get you as a gift?" And a lot of times they would say if they weren't my clients, and they'd be like, "Nothing," and I'd be like, "Oh, really?" And then even that little subtle thing, I'm not saying anything bad about the realtor, but I'm like, yeah, I always get a moving present. You have to, you know? So those little things too. I mean, who doesn't want a bottle of, you know, tequila or a gift certificate to their favorite restaurant or something? Just any gesture, you know?
Okay, so that took off, and then that probably became kind of okay, this is great, it paid the bills, but now let's move on. How did you transition into selling more? Was that a challenge, or did that just
it was a big challenge because I did so well as the rental guy that I became the rental guy. So, you know, I would get hit up for years, hey, I heard you're the rental expert. And I started to hear that a bunch, and I was like, this isn't good. So I had to kind of change that. So as I started making more and doing more sales, I had to hire someone. So I remember I hired this girl, this new agent, and I basically had to, all my clients who would say that to me, I'd be like, yeah, I got you. This girl on my team, she handles all my rentals. So I'm going to introduce you to her right now. So then it kind of gives a different perspective in their mind. Oh yeah, he can handle the rentals, but he's more of a sales guy. So then, you do it organically. Whenever you do sales, you push it out, social media, you advertise sales more than rentals. People need to see what you're doing. And for a long time, people saw me doing all the rentals, and it led to an incredible rental business. But obviously the money you make on rentals compared to sales. So that transition, it took us several years to kind of do that. Also, it helps just with, me starting so young. When I was 21, 22, an older person wasn't necessarily going to trust me with a sale when I'm skateboarding around and I'm in my, Dodge Dakota, and I live at the Flamingo, and I had never owned a property. So, as you get older and you get more experience, and, it helps. When I bought my place, I had gone through the process, my first place that I bought in 2011, and then so you can kind of say, oh yeah, the mortgage broker that I use for my business, and then as you get older, your clients get older. So, there's a couple of buildings that I would do a ton of sales in because of that sweet spot of like $400,000 to $700,000 at the time, that a lot of my peers and people my age who trusted me and were my friends, and I rented to them before, they would automatically use me for their sales. So that's cool with real estate. You kind of grow up with your clients, as they make money, they remember, you did 3 rentals for them, and then they're ready to buy a place for $1 million. And, so you kind of evolve with them. But
Well, now you've evolved into representing some developments. And we were talking about one earlier. So we're talking like you break in, do what you've got to do, rentals, especially in 2008. I mean, did you
yeah,
see the movie, the short about that?
great movie.
The
Love
mortgage?
that movie. Yeah.
It was like
I
really,
wish I wish I had more cash then. I would have bought some stuff.
it's a great movie.
Yeah.
So,
When I bought my place, I had a very simple formula. I was renting at the Flamingo. It was 2010. I looked at how much the rentals were because I knew the rental market. I did the math. If I put 20% down, I buy this place, taxes, maintenance, mortgage. I'm like, this will be cheaper than if I rent it. So that was a no-brainer for me. And, it's funny. I bought one place that I moved into. One of my good friends from college, he bought one in the same building. Another friend bought one because, people trust what you do yourself. And so, yeah, right around that time, the numbers just made sense to buy instead of rent. And like I said, I wish I had more cash, could have had more
yeah,
property.
really, no kidding.
Yeah.
And then you did that. Then you transition into selling. You basically reposition yourself. And now you're also representing bigger, more beautiful homes and developments. So how did that work?
Yeah, again, I mean, I just turned 39 a couple weeks ago, and over the years, you just kind of do
Yeah,
more and more and bigger and bigger.
one more year, Reid, until you're
Yeah,
old. I'm
sure.
kidding. But
Yeah.
keep going. So you talk about your business, building developments, things getting bigger.
Yeah, I mean, you do one deal for. I remember I went to a listing appointment once, and it was for a house that was $12 million. And the seller, he said to me, how many houses have you sold over $10 million? I said, none. And he asked me, he was like, well, what are you doing here? And, I gave the only answer that I could, which was, listen, I know you're interviewing with a bunch of other brokers. They might have 10 listings, right now that are in that range. But, I'm going to give you full undivided attention. This is my biggest listing. So do you want the person who's got 10 of properties of yours that they're spending their time, or someone who's giving 100% of their time to it? The answer is very obvious now, because I've seen it over the years. People want to work with busy people that are doing a lot of, similar properties. And so, like I said, I gave the best answer I could, but he had no interest. And I left.
Like that's
But
what you guys say. All the guys who don't have experience, that's their line.
yeah, that's the only thing you can really say at that point. The other option, which I kind of preach to our team now, is use us. If you walk into a listing appointment, or you have someone introduce you to someone who wants to sell their house for 20 million bucks, if you walk in, you're not going to get it, unless very tiny chance you're going to get it. But use us. You can say that we sold 200 million last year. We sold this $20 million house here. We sold this. So I kind of preach that to the younger agents on our team, that if you have a listing opportunity, the good thing about being on a team is that our sales and our successes counts for yours. And if you need us to come and, kind of have your back or co-list it, whatever it is, we're there to help you. But at that point, I had never been on a team, so I didn't have that tool to use. But over the years, I just did, you do a sale for 2 million, you do one for 4, you do another one for 5, 6, 7, one for 12. And then over the years, you kind of just build up this resume. When someone sells a big property, it's obviously great because you sold a big property and you made a nice commission, but it's double good because now you've added to your resume and you've gained yourself a better opportunity to get these other properties for sale and for rent, because people need to see that you have experience with those similar homes that they either want to buy or sell. So, now we're working with some developers, specifically 2901 Indian Creek, super exciting project. It's in the Faena district. Right now, there's only 2 new construction projects in all of the Faena district, and
Wow.
it's the Amon residence, which is already sold out and everyone knows, and then it's us. So, with Shore Club and Sotheby and Bulgari, then you've got the Addition, Faena, Fontainebleau, Soho House. That pocket is going to be so cool. It's transforming so much already, and we're right in the center of that. We're on 29th in Indian Creek, so it's really cool because we're facing west. You get the really nice sunset views. They've been fixing up the streets right in front of the property, right in front of the canal. So we're really excited about that. We have 11 units, 1 penthouse, 2 townhouses, and some 3 bedrooms that are really cool. So we just launched sales, I think 2 weeks ago. It's going
Wow.
really well.
So looking back at all of this and how you create all this success, I mean, from riding the skateboard in the Dodge Dakota to
Yeah,
the premier listing, one of
miss
the premier,
that car.
that's a development, and doing, a $250 million in sales in a year.
Mm.
What do you wish you had known then that you know now? Or do you now tell the you on the skateboard with the Dodge Dakota?
Very good question. The one thing I'm happy about is I've kind of stuck with it. Like I said in the beginning, there's, real estate's a lot of, it's a roller coaster. There's good days, there's bad days, there's good years, there's bad years. And that's just part of it. Can't control the market, can't control the pricing. But you can control, that every day you get up, you do the same thing. My clients know for, some 10, 12, 15 years, they can call me and I'm going to get back to them right away. So I think, showing up and being consistent is the thing that I'm probably kind of most proud of, that I've stuck with it. I didn't, try to do something else. What I wish I would have known, that's a really good question. I mean, I wish I would have known that houses on the water were going to be 20 million bucks, and I would have bought them when they were like 2. But I think actually I think I would have probably joined a team. I did it kind of my way and on my own. I had some help within the brokerage, but I think I could have escalated things a lot quicker if I would have learned from someone else and kind of got in front of a lot of those people that I didn't have access to because it wasn't, my network. I really see, the value of being with a brokerage, and more specifically, like being on a team where they already have these kind of relationships and you can learn from, and you can get a lot more experience quicker. I had to kind of generate all of my business and experience personally by, running around and meeting people and being social, and I think I could have expedited that a lot more if I had, had more of a mentor in the business. So I would probably have tweaked that a little bit.
Yeah, it's funny because you were looking for freedom, so that probably, as I can relate, that didn't sound good. But in
Yeah.
hindsight,
Yeah,
right?
that's a very good point. I think the reason I probably didn't is that the dream for me, I was living the fact that I could wake up and make my own schedule, and I didn't have a boss, I didn't have anyone that I had to answer to. No one could call me and be like, where are you? Other than, the clients that I was working with. So, that was super appealing to me at the time, and I loved that. But that would have, yeah, that's probably what made me not do it, actually. Very good insight.
Well, and it's funny because you don't realize you should have been on a team until it's kind of too late because you're kind of in that place where it's not going to make the impact that it would have.
Yeah.
Things you needed to know to be on a team to make the impact. You needed the struggles of not being on the team to make the difference of being on a team, leverage it, appreciate it. So I
Yeah.
don't know what the solution is to that, but just like, as you think through,
Yeah.
because we don't know what teams are like and not being on teams like and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I would say to any new agent, unless you have, you come from like an incredibly wealthy family, or you have, an incredible network, or you're a little bit, older when you start, I think it's a very valuable move that will help, kind of expedite your career, expedite the learning, get you in front of those, get you to a point where if you show up for a listing, because you're lucky enough to meet someone and they have you over, and if you're on a team, you can kind of avoid those, what the hell are you doing here? You've never sold anything at this point, or at this price point. So
You said get up and just, I'm glad I got up and I did the same thing. What are the same things? Consistency. What are the same things you should do every day? What's the stuff that's important, especially looking back
yeah,
and
I mean, you
now and
got
maybe
to,
growth? Yeah.
yeah, I think, discipline in anything is so important. It's like the two words that really resonate with me the most in life are discipline and balance. I need to be my best. I really need to be disciplined, whether it's a diet, whether it's sleep, whether it's work. But within that, you need a certain amount of balance. You got to take time for yourself. You can't work all the time and not go to the gym. You can't, so having a balance is really important. I think it's also a good exercise for everyone to think about, when you're 21 and you're starting, what are your goals? And when I was 21, I wanted to be able to pay my bills and make my own schedule. And then I got to a point after a year or two, I was like, I want to own my own place. And then I owned my own place, and then you want like a bigger place. And then after that, instead of a condo, I want a house. Okay, you get a house. Then you want a house, but you want a house on the water. Then you want a boat because your neighbor's got a bigger boat. And I think, it's good that we're all just continually motivated to try to get, never be complacent and always kind of want better and better. But it's also super important to look back and say, when I was 21, my goal was to own a condo. And right now I do own a condo because I'm 20 and I'm 24. So let me just take a moment to appreciate this, and, know that this was my goal, and, enjoy that kind of moment. And you get your first boat, enjoy your boat, get a bigger one later. But it's a cliche, but that journey, it's really fun because you can't go back. And so, when I'm thinking about me skateboarding around to listings and like picking up my buddies that I got them apartments for, and like them making me help them move their like couches and TVs in my truck, and me bringing them a bottle of Patron, it's like, I look back on that fondly. Thinking about doing that work now, no, but it's, enjoying that process, and then, keeping that balance. You got to keep yourself happy. But yeah, you got to be the most important thing, I think, in any business, and especially in real estate, when you make your own schedule, when you're your own boss, you got to be really disciplined, because nobody's yelling at you if you sleep in. No one's yelling at you for anything. It's up to you to, maintain that discipline within your daily schedule so that you can achieve what your goals are. And that's it's a daily challenge, but if you can be disciplined, maintain that balance, it's key to success.
Well, if you could narrow, they say 20% of what you do is usually what usually it's 20% of what you do is creating 80% of your results. So you keep honing in.
I thought about that a lot when I was a rental agent and I was doing 70 rentals a year and 4 sales. And I'd look at my numbers, that was always in the back of my head. I was like, how do I transition out of that? Because of that 80-20 rule that you just mentioned. It's so true.
Yeah, like 70% of, if you're doing 70 rentals, what if that's 70 sales? So when you look at what you do in your life, what is it? Is it, people might say, okay, like, I don't know, I've been quoting the Stutz documentary. Have you seen it on Netflix?
Well,
It's the name of a documentary. Jonah, whose last name I don't remember, does this documentary with his therapist. It sounds kind of ridiculous, but it's cool because there's a quote and he says, I always tell people, you've got your life force. And you're like in any situation, just hone into your life force. With your life force, you've got your relationship with yourself.
Mm.
You've got your relationship or your physical with your body. How do you take care of yourself, your stuff, your relationship with other people, and then your relationship with yourself. If you can hone it in, narrow it down to that, you can figure it all out. It's fascinating. But I say all of that. The question I go back to though is, there's the stuff you just got to prioritize, like the journey. Enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
Take care of yourself, work out, get balance. And then there's the stuff you got to just do. You can do all of that, but if you don't show up for your goal's not going to happen. And your work will.
It goes by quick.
Yeah.
39. Fuck. It's crazy. And then, pretty soon you're 45 and 50. I mean, God willing.
Not 35. You're not 45 yet, Reid. But anyway.
I know. But yeah, I mean, the cool thing about real estate, one of the things that I really love too about being a real estate agent is the people you meet's incredible. I just talked to one of my best friends in the world 20 minutes ago, and he just had his second kid. And I met him because he needed an apartment. And I picked him up in my Dodge Dakota, and, we've been best friends ever since. 20 minutes before that, I talked to one of my best friends from Canada who's in Anguilla right now, who's a very successful developer. And I met him because I got his girlfriend an apartment way back in the day, who's now his wife. But being a real estate agent, if you like people, is really awesome because you're constantly meeting new people all the time, and you can learn something from everyone. So whether it's a huge developer or whether it's, the bartender at Ted's Hideaway, it's
well, you
so
learn
over the years you collect kind of these friendship stories and experiences, and the process is really, it's pretty, it's one thing I really love about being involved as a residential agent, because people have to open up to you. We're their therapist, we're their financial advisor. They have to say, hey, I'm moving because I'm having a kid, I'm getting divorced, my girlfriend's moving in, I got a new job. So, people really have to open up. And if you like people, it's a really rewarding job as well too, because you're helping them make a little money, you're helping create the right home for them. So that's a big component too that I've really liked.
What's been the biggest challenge of growth as you've grown? Because going to $250 million a year is a big deal.
A lot of it, I want to take all the credit for the success in the past, let's call it 3, 4, 5 years. But at the end of the day, like I said, I've always loved Miami. I think I never understood. It would piss me off that everyone would be like, oh yeah, Miami's like Vegas. And no disrespect to Vegas. Vegas, I'm sure, is a great city. But to me, I'm like, the quality of life in Miami.
I did live there for 3 years. It's great.
Yeah. And you know what? Vegas people might feel the same way as me, but we were always like, the New Yorkers, the LA people, they'd be like, yeah, Miami's cool. I like it for a weekend. And I love telling New York people, and now it doesn't sound so crazy, but for years I'd be like, oh yeah, I like New York for the weekend. And they're like, what do you mean? Miami's like the place you go. And I'm like, not for me. Like, we have the beach. We can have cars. We can drive to the grocery store. The weather's amazing. We can go, oh, LA, you have an ocean. Cool. Are you going to go swim in it? Do you go on like yachts on the weekend? No, we do, so I've always been so passionately like ambassadoring Miami, and kind of take the conversation full circle. So I would love to take a lot of credit for the fact that my business has, done a lot better in the past 4 or 5 years and kind of taken it up to $250 million a year last year. But really what changed is I would show people places for months, 6 months, 9 months. I'm like, oh, maybe I'll get a house in Malibu. Maybe I'll get a place in New York. I'm not really sure. No one really needed to be here, So it didn't, a lot of these people, they would rent for December through March, but they didn't want to buy because it was a part-time place for them. And, so there's two things that happened over COVID is enough people moved here. And once that happened, people like to do what their friends do. So when that happened, the prices doubled. So, if I was doing $100 million last year, the numbers, if that had been 5 years ago, I would have been doing $100 million. But now the prices have doubled. So my numbers are up. And then secondly, there's just a real demand now. People feel like they need to be here. People have moved their businesses down here. There's some great companies and hedge funds. Everyone knows about Citadel and Starwoods. They kind of have made Miami their home brought offices, brought employees. So now there's people that, really want to be here and need to be here. And they're looking for not just a vacation home and not just a fun weekend getaway. So, those two factors, I can't, overstate how much it's changed Miami. And, for me, since I've been doing it for so long, all those renters, all those people who were, buying before, they kind of converted into buyers, or instead of a second home, they got a real home. So, that really goes back to being consistent, sticking with it, and being their go-tos.
Yeah, it's funny because you're all about freedom and you love the roller coaster. And on the other
Mhm.
side of that, it's discipline and consistency. But that's
Yeah,
because
I
that
think,
gives you the ability.
anytime I'm in I think I look at I've been everyone's relationship counselor for years when I'm driving around showing them places and, they're opening up. But I think one of the most important things in any relationship is, you have your rules, you have your boundaries, but within that you feel free. So everyone knows there's rules, everyone knows that you can't cross this line, you can't do that. But when someone has a certain amount of freedom every day and they feel supported, that's when I think success happens and relationships work. So for me, I'm disciplined with myself, but I have that balance and I give myself enough room to have a little fun, take a vacation, do this so I don't drive myself crazy and not too constricted with
Well, it gives you room to be you. Gives you room to
100%.
make what you do
And
and
what's
make.
better than that? Being yourself.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
why do people love anybody other than because they're being themselves?
Yeah.
Like usually if you don't like somebody, it's because it's like they're not there. Like somebody else is there.
Yeah,
Because the
they're
more
acting.
chance to get to meet the real person, you're like, oh, like
I
I've never.
love when people are extreme versions of themselves. And like extreme, extreme might be the wrong word. I love when people are the full extent of their personalities, because a lot of people are just holding back, you know. You want to make sure you don't offend anyone. You want to make sure that you fit in environments. But when you meet people that are just the full extent of their personalities, it's refreshing. And
Yeah.
it kind of frees up everyone else. You see this guy come in and everyone's wearing suits and this guy's got like a crate. It's like, oh, he's him. That's great. It's nice to see.
And that's what you get to do as a real estate agent.
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, it's you're representing, some very expensive properties. So, you definitely want to bring your own personality into it. And that's what I love, working with Marko. We make it super fun and enjoyable. And, when I'm walking a house with someone, we were just looking at some properties between like 20 and $35 million this morning. And, it's important to be able to speak to your clients honestly. So, I'll walk through and I'll say, anything. You can just let them know that like, I don't like this. This is kind of weird. So they feel like they're kind of with a friend who's being honest. And that's part of it is them being able to trust you and know that you're not just trying to make a commission. I always have this fear that I sell something to someone and then they want to sell it a year later and it's worth, way less. And, you can never predict the market, but I can tell when I think some things are overpriced, or I think that, this quality isn't that good. And it's important, to let them know that you're seeing what they're seeing. You're not just a yes man. But at the end of the day, you got to keep a certain amount of like class. And, I've got my disciplined rules with showings and things. I would love to be covered in tattoos, but I'm not going to do that just because,
Well, if you get tired of them, you can't get rid of them.
you can, yeah. I'm too
It's
much of a wuss. I'd probably regret them in certain
right.
situations, but I like the versatility of, if you see me on Halloween, I'm always covered in tats. Travis Barker.
Change the tats every Halloween.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I love Halloween. But no, I mean, I try to keep it certain,
What's a
classy enough.
fun? Like, here's another. I think one of the most painful things for agents is as you get there, the difficult conversations.
I mean, I don't mind the difficult conversations because two things. One, I'm not a pushy agent. No one, I've worked with thousands of people. You'll never meet anyone who was like, Reid was like very aggressive. Like, you need to make an offer. You need to do this. I give people as much time as they want. If they want to look at places for a year, it's not my, perfect, it's not ideal, but if they need that much time, they need that much time. It's a big decision. I get it. So I'm never going to be pushy with those kind of conversations. And then, I'm always honest with them. So I'm never really worried about any of the conversations because they know I'm gonna tell
Sellers.
them what I think.
The buyers are the easy ones. The sellers are where the difficult conversations come in. How do you navigate those?
Well, so with the sellers, it's very simple. I tell them, listen, your house, your condo, it is worth, everyone has an idea of what it's worth. And you tell them this one line, and it's true, and they can do what they want with it. Your house is worth what someone is willing to pay for it on the market today. And if you're listed at $20 million and you've been up there for a month, and you think it's worth 19 or 20, it's not, because someone would have paid for it. It's worth what someone is willing to transact in that moment. And if they can't understand that or accept that, then they're not real sellers, and that's okay. No one's forcing them to sell anything, but they need to be more realistic. At the end of the day, residential real estate is really fun because not only is it a math problem, but it's also like an emotional thing. Someone walks in, their family's there, they're spending time there, but and that's a factor, but it's also a math problem. So you can't disagree with numbers. And if they want to, it is what it is. I present the numbers and they can do what they want with it.
I
So
love that. Here's what I love that. Thank you for that. Here's what a lot of people would be thinking or saying, I think, is that's great, Reid, but I just want to keep the listing. Or that's great, Reid, but what if I make them mad? Or that's great, Reid, but
yeah,
what if that's
trust
great,
me, I've worked with my share of people that are very difficult. It's not the difficult conversations, it's the personality, because everyone's personality is different. And some people are a little more stubborn. Some people are a little more unrealistic. Some people have some anger issues, and some people are super easygoing. But when you're dealing with someone um, who's a little difficult, wait, what was your question?
just that's great, Reid, but if I'm that honest with them, what if I lose the listing? What if they say,
Oh,
what if it,
I
like,
would rather
bad things
I
that could
would
happen?
rather not have a listing than have an unrealistic seller, because then I'm just wasting my time.
No
I don't want
deal.
to show up to this. Yeah, and that's the thing. That's actually something that I wish I would have learned at a younger age. Because I've wasted a lot of time with people that were completely unrealistic. And sometimes it's worth it. You do an open house, you meet someone else, you meet a buyer that way. It's an opportunity. Any listings is an opportunity to kind of like, do some content, do some social media stuff, which can get you other clients and buyers, and let everyone know that you're out there and you're working. But at the end of the day, unrealistic sellers, you don't want that listing if it's not going to move. It's a waste of your time. And so I'm okay with that at this stage of my career. um I'm fine with losing a
Value is the
listing if
value of
it's
your
not
time.
realistic, because then it's just going to be someone else's problem.
Exactly. I love the one-liner. That was brilliant. All right,
Which
we're
one?
gonna do the final three questions. We did these when you were on with Marko. but we're going to
Yeah.
do the beginnings that could have changed, and it's fun. So number
Okay.
one, what's a book that we should read?
What's a book that we should read? The Bible. I don't know.
Good one,
What's a book?
actually.
What's that?
That's way underrated by a lot of people. But what's another
Yeah, I
one?
mean, yeah, I'm not overly religious, so I actually wouldn't say.
Right?
Um, a good book
Have
that
to be
someone
religious.
should.
Check it out.
Um, uh, I believe it's called In the Night or In the Dark. One of the two. But basically, um, I
In the
just
dark.
read In the Dark. That might be the wrong word, but that's the idea. But
Is it
I've
nonfiction?
read, no, it's basically the idea of it is
Is it a series?
no, it's like the whole concept of it is what you do in the dark when no one's looking, what you do when no one's watching is, ultimately what leads to your success. Whether if you're an athlete, it's not, they see everything at the end, they see you make the shot or hit the home run, but they don't see, you shooting 1,000 free throws in the gym, by yourself, and the idea of the whole book is, what are you doing on your own time, doing the hard work that no one sees? That's ultimately what's going to lead to your success later. Because everyone sees the end product, they see, oh, they sold 220 million, but how much like grinding, how much paperwork, how many, I have this image of myself at my old office on 17th and Meridian. I would show places all day, and then I would go to the office and I'd sit there and everyone would be gone. And I'd be there from 8 o'clock till 2 a.m. sometimes, writing the contracts, responding to emails, looking for properties, sending it to people, and everyone just sees, oh, 220 million bucks, or they see the Instagram post that, you make fun, but they don't see the hours and hours and hours and hours of like work behind the scenes.
Potatoes, right? Like back to
Yeah.
consistency, create that freedom and fun.
Yeah.
And they go,
Yeah.
you don't get what, like, it's like they work very well together.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. There's so
cannot
many
find the
layers and
book.
so many variables.
We've got to find this book.
I can double check. It's
Let us
in
know.
the
We'll share it with everybody. But I love just your description.
in the dark.
What's it called?
Oh no, that's a different one. I'm gonna
Now,
get it for you. I'm gonna double check. It's on my Amazon. I gotta check.
what's your greatest resource for your success?
Greatest resource for my success. It's definitely my ability. First of all, I like people. I like interacting with people. I like meeting people. I like being social. I'm not an extroverted extrovert. I'm an introverted extrovert. So that's where it goes back to like in the dark. I need, like a cell phone. I need to charge up, and I do that solo, whether I'm at home, kind of relaxing, getting lost in some Netflix show for 20 minutes or for 2 hours, or, just getting a good night's sleep or just relaxing. But once I'm all charged up, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I want to be around people. I want to meet people, hang out with people, talk to people, learn about people, learn from people, ask them questions. I think it's super cool that there's billions of people and everyone's different, but then we have so many like of the same common denominators. So, I think one of the biggest resources of my success is definitely that I enjoy people and getting to know them. And, as a result, very much like a chameleon. So I could talk to this person, this person, this person. And the reason I'm able to is because I'm genuinely interested in, their story.
Yeah. Introverted extrovert. I can relate to that.
Yeah.
COVID, I never thought I could have spent so much time at home.
I
And then,
love myself.
oh, this is awesome. What were you going to say?
I love myself.
Yeah.
I
I
love being by my hanging out with me alone.
awesome.
Fantastic. Yeah. I get a night where I don't have a dinner, I don't have a birthday, I don't have like anything to do.
Right.
Fantastic. I can,
Right.
my mom, I remember my mom saying, people who are bored are boring people,
Right.
and I couldn't agree more. I'm never bored.
Right. I know.
I love being on a plane. Oh my God. Being on
Me
a plane is great. You have like people bringing you drinks and food, you got movies, Wi-Fi. You can't answer your phone. You're just having a good old time by yourself. But so like after a few days of hanging out with just me solo, I'm like, all right, let me go. Yeah, let me go hang out with some people and so but I've got friends who are extroverted extroverts. Oh my God. They hate being alone. They wanna
Yeah.
they hate just being they get energy from other people. I get energy from my solo time and then I just recharge and then I super extroverted. But that's a big
I never heard that before. I love it. That resonated for me. Okay, last question. Everybody listening, if they forget everything we say, which they should not, but if they do, and you want to make sure we remember one thing from you, what is it?
um I'm a pretty I have a good time, it's nice selling a bunch of real estate and making a bunch of money and but at the end of the day you got to do something that you want to do and enjoy yourself because I like what I do and every day is it's exciting because I'm meeting new people, I'm having fun, I maintain my discipline. But I'd say find something that you really like doing and make sure to keep that balance in your life of you got to have fun, you got to travel, or else you're not interesting. If you just work all the time, it's not interesting. And if you just party all the time, no one respects you. So like keep that healthy balance, figure out what discipline works for you. Figure out like if you're an introverted introvert, if you're an extroverted introvert, like, figure out what works for you. Because everyone's different and there's no wrong answers, but when people are the full extent of their personality and, they have a healthy balance that keeps them happy and they maintain that discipline and they're doing things that they enjoy and using their skill set to, to make themselves happy and make some money. I mean, that's a lot of things, but you'll be happy
And successful, which I guess that's part of all the things.
have some money. Yeah. And the thing is, something else that there's that thing, oh, money can't buy happiness. Sure, money alone can't buy happiness, but what money does is gives freedom. And it goes back to that original thing. I didn't want to work somewhere had to be somewhere at a certain time. When you make a certain amount of money or you have a certain amount of success, that money gives you freedom to decide what you want to do every single day. If you don't have X amount of money, you maybe can't go to that restaurant that you like every week. You can't go on that extra trip that you want to go to. You can't, you're more tied to things that you don't want. So money can't buy you happiness, but money can buy you freedom. And that freedom is a form of happiness, at least for me. And I think a lot of people, when you can, really decide how you want to spend your days.
Especially when you like yourself and you're an introverted extrovert.
Yeah, you got to figure out everyone should love themselves, you got to figure out what you love about yourself if you don't, My friend in college said, I'm not cocky. He goes, but I think I'm fantastic. But I think you're fantastic too. Everyone should think they're fantastic. But I'm not better than anyone. I just personally think I'm great. So I like that. I
love that.
Yeah.
So true, right?
Yeah, you're better than anyone else. You're just independently awesome.
So true. It's so true. Reid, you're so much fun and you're so
Go
awesome.
on. Go on.
Reid Heidenry, One Sotheby's International Realty in the Miami Beach office.
That's right.
So good to see you today, and thank you for doing that.
You too. Stay out of trouble.
Thanks for listening to the Jere Metcalf podcast, where top real estate agents tell how they do it. Powered by Breakthrough Luxury Coaching, this podcast was created for real estate agents across the world, coming together, sharing ideas that take their businesses to the next level. Breakthrough Luxury Coaching and membership provide luxury real estate agents tools and resources that win more business, increase volume and sales prices, and create results. To learn more, go to getstarted.breakthroughluxury.com.